Restless Chipotle. Today we are going to tackle the impossible and make the perfect flaky butter pie crust you've ever tasted. Even if you have totally failed at pie crust for years, this one is going to be no problem, okay? Promise, it's so easy. So the first thing that we're going to do is I've got a cup and a quarter of all-purpose flour. So we're going to put that in there. That goes in first. And then I have, it's in the recipe, but a little bit of salt and a little bit of sugar. That's going to go in there. So we're going to mix that all up with a fork. Get it all blended up real good. I also have a little bit of extra sugar, and I'll show you what that's for in a little bit, and ice water, okay? You're going to need about 1/3 of a cup of ice water, but it's not written in blood. You're also going to need a 1/2 cup of butter. I'm hoping it's 1/2 cup. If it says different in the recipe, go by what the recipe says, but I'm thinking it's 1/2 cup. 1/2 cup of butter that's been in the freezer for 30 minutes. This is very important, okay? Take the time, put it in the freezer for 30 minutes. I promise you, it's totally worth it. All right, so you're gonna open up the butter because I didn't do that ahead of time. And it's a little bit warmer than I would like because this is my studio, not my kitchen, and I didn't just grab it out of the freezer. But yours is gonna be ice cold. And then you're going to get your grater, and on the big side, the big tooth, I don't know, what is this called? The big grater side? You're just gonna grate your butter into your flour. And what I want you to do is to stop every little bit, take your fork, and get that butter all covered with your flour mixture, your flour and sugar and salt that's in there, okay? Because you don't want it sticking together in a great big lump. All right, so we're gonna do this, and this is one of those things I could not do ahead of time, so I'm just gonna do it here. It doesn't take that long. And every once in a while, you wanna stop and go ahead and break up any clumps and stir it up so that it's all covered with flour. And do that until the butter is gone. And I checked, it is 1/2 cup. So yay for me for remembering. You know, if I was smart, which I am smart, but if I thought things through, which I have a tendency to not, I would have all of my little instructions right here next to me instead of trying to rely on what's in my brain. But I'm just, you know, I don't think about that before it's too late. So anyway, it is indeed a 1/2 cup of butter. And I'm almost done with that. Don't worry about using it all up to the point that you like cause your fingers to be bloody on this. All right, so we've got that. My fingers are all buttery, and I have paper towel to wipe them off. Yay. Okay, so once you get it all in there, you're gonna just mix it up so that it looks like exactly what it is. It looks like flour-covered butter shreds. It's just all in there. I like to go through with my fingers and just make sure that there aren't any clumps that I'm not seeing. Like there's one, and just break that up. It's not gonna hurt it if it's in there, but I just don't want any great big lumps. I want it all in there. Okay, now that I've made a huge mess, so what you want to do then is you're going to use about 1/3 of a cup of ice water, and this literally is water with ice in it, which is why it's much bigger than 1/3 of a cup. And like so many things, this is not rocket science. So you may need a little less than 1/3 of a cup. You may need a little bit more than 1/3 of a cup. There's one of those things that's going to take practice to get it exactly right. So I'm going to pour just a tiny bit of my ice water into my bowl and stir it around with my handy dandy fork. I want to touch this with my hands as little as possible because my hands are warm and they will cause the butter to melt, and we don't want the butter to melt. We want it to be cold. A lot of times I will use vodka, and I keep it in the freezer and use that because that stays very, very icy cold. And the whole key to pie crust is, excuse me, that was driving me nuts. How about you? The whole key to pie crust is keeping it really icy cold. So vodka works really well. You can use the same amount as you do ice water. Just keep it in the freezer and then pour it right out. It's going to totally evaporate away, and it actually does make for a flakier crust. But I am low on vodka right now, and I am planning on relaxing this evening after doing video with a mule of some kind that will require vodka. So I'm using water. Anyway, so now this is where, once it gets to this point where it's kind of starting to clump up, I usually need to use my hands just to see if it's ready to hold together yet, and it's not. So since it's not completely holding together, I'm going to use a little bit more water, and I'm going to stir it up some more. And what I'm looking for is that it all clumps up and it will hold itself into a ball like this. I mean, it's not going to feel like Play-Doh because you don't want it to be too wet. If it's too wet, it's not going to be flaky. If your pie crust is coming out not flaky, it's because you've either overworked it and the butter melted right into the flour, or because you've used too much liquid and it's got the wrong texture. All right, at the risk of using too much liquid, I have some pie dough crumbles at the bottom of this, and I want to get all of it. So, and let me tell you, nobody makes a perfect pie crust every time, not even Kraft or whoever. Guarantee it. I've been doing it for years and I still mess up every once in a while. All right, so I've got my ball from my bowl, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to wrap that up, and I'm going to chill it for about 30 minutes. Normally, that's what I'm going to do. Right now, I'm going to save time by not chilling it for 30 minutes, but this is one of those cases of do as I do, no, do as I say, not as I do. I am actually going to roll this right now, but it would roll much better and be much flakier when it's baked if I took the time to do that, I promise. All right, so you're going to sprinkle a little bit of flour on your surface. You're going to put the pie dough on there that you've kind of bunched up into a ball. All right, so here we go. So you're going to, okay, let me tell you the story behind this rolling pin. This rolling pin I have had since before I was married the first time, so that makes it really old. I got married the first time in 1980. So it used to have handles on it, but the handles came off, and I found that I liked it much better without the handles. I have beautiful rolling pins that people have given me, real pretty ceramic ones with ceramic handles, wood rolling pins, French rolling pins, an antique rolling pin that was my mother's that was given to her when she got married in 1930. Something like that, 35, yeah, you know. This is my favorite rolling pin, and so while it is very tempting to always use a pretty rolling pin when I'm doing a video so you guys can see how pretty my rolling pins are, you will always see me using this one because it's the one that works the best for me because I love it. So I'm going to use a very light touch, and I'm going to roll and turn, roll and turn, roll and turn. I am not pushing down at all. You want to roll from the middle out, and you don't want to press down because you want the butter to create layers in the dough. You don't want it to meld with the dough so much. So I don't know, I don't think you guys can probably see, but you can look in here and you can see the strips of butter in there. They're not mixed in. It's not one big clump of dough. It's dough with strips of butter in it, and that's what you want to keep. If it starts getting warm and feeling a little melty, then you want to throw it back in the freezer for just a few minutes. All right, so we're going to roll this out and we're going to turn it. And I'm going to use as little flour as possible to keep it from sticking. Now, on this one, I don't think I'm going to have to use hardly any, because this this table that my husband got me has a special kind of, it's wood, but nothing really sticks to it, so I don't know what's up with that. But I will have to put a little bit of flour on the top to keep it from sticking to the rolling pin. You just want to roll it out until it's the size that you want it, and you should be able to lift it up like this. And you're going to want to lift it up every once in a while to make sure that it's not sticking. But the other thing about it is that you want to make sure that you're getting an even, that the layer is even, that it's not, a 1/2 inch thick on one side and 1/8 of an inch thick on the other side. All right, and the thinner that it gets, the more likely it's going to stick, so be very careful. All right, so we still have that. I'm going to turn it over and roll it a little bit more, because almost there. All right, so now you can see how I'm rolling. So I'm rolling. If you're tearing it, just take a little piece off and put it right in there. And you want to, like I said, you want to turn it over a few times. Put a little bit of flour on there. Put it over your rolling pin and just flip it. If it breaks apart, it's because you don't have enough liquid in there. So, like I said, the hardest thing about this is getting it right. As far as the texture, the ratio of flour and liquid, but you, a little bit of practice, like 1 or 2 times, and you will get it. You'll have it figured out. The other important thing is keep it cold. All right, so that looks like it's about the right size for what I want. And so now it's ready to go into my pan. So you've rolled your dough out. You're going to fold it over your rolling pin, lift it up, and I'm going to move my pan center so you guys can see it. And then you're just going to gently put it in the pan. Again, do not worry about rips and tears, because they go back together relatively easily. I may have rolled this out a little thin in my exuberance, but we'll see. All right, so we have our dough and we've got a little overlap. And what I do is I look for places where I don't have enough, and then I'll add a little bit there. Again, the thing about it is when this bakes, it's all gonna bake together, so nobody's gonna be the wiser. To shape the dough, you're gonna push it down in the pan, just gently, everything gently. Push it down in the pan, and then you're gonna roll the ends under to make it pretty. And you can, you can just kind of shape it smoothly so that when you do make the little scallops on it, they are relatively even. Honestly, I don't worry too much about that myself, because we all are so ready to dig in and eat it when it's done that nobody really cares what the edges look like. But if you do, then you want to take this time to go in and get them even and make them pretty. So getting them even, it looks like most of the edges were pretty even there. And so now what I'm going to do is I'm going to pinch between my thumb, and I'm going to put this like this, and then I'm going to take my other thumb and my other finger and push, and that's what makes a scallop. And I'm going to hold it over the edge of the pie pan when I do that. Can y'all see what I'm doing? So simple. Now, there's a lot of fancy edges that you can make, but to me, Grandma did it a certain way for a certain reason, and it's because it's quick and easy. Just push, 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 push. All right, so there's our pie. It's all ready to be filled, or almost all ready to be filled. Depending on what kind of pie you're going to make, one of the things that I like to do is to, my butter is getting a little hard in here. It's not the warmest room in the house right now. All right, so I will brush the bottom with butter. I like to sprinkle just a little bit of sugar on the bottom. To me, it helps the bottom stay crisp. You would not want to do this if it wasn't a sweet pie, obviously, but that works for me. And now it's all ready to be filled or to go into the oven to be blind baked, and whatever you want to do with it. Y'all have a good day, and be sure to check out the recipe on Restless Chipotle. And this is the pie crust that I use in every one of my pies, unless it's a crumb crust. Okay, so enjoy. Love y'all.